The Almost Perfect Podcast.
Welcome to the Almost Perfect Podcast, a celebration of fuck-ups, failures, and falling flat on your face. This is a podcast that believes you can learn from experience, but that experience doesn't have to be your own. Hi, I'm Bob Perfect, and I'm a functional fuck-up. Let's learn from somebody else's mistakes. And today we are learning from Jumping Back Slash, who is a returning guest on this podcast, but he is a musician, he is a producer, and he is a grumpy old geezer, and I have got a lot of love for JBS, and I've got a lot of love for this conversation that we have today. It's pretty real. There's a lot that goes on here, because we talk about his descent into madness, essentially, over the last 2 years, I think it's something we can all relate to, considering the isolation and the compounding effects of everything that's been going on. That is something we get into a little bit later. If this sounds a little soft, I'm sorry. I'm going to try bring the levels up. Just now, I am coming to you from my mom and grand's place up here in Joburg, and they're busy sleeping, so I'm busy trying to keep it at a reasonable level so as not to wake them up. But yeah, man, this is such a good chat. It really is, and it's like a lot of the stuff that we were talking about has actually come up more since we had the conversation. Because we had this conversation on Wednesday, and then yesterday I met up with a bunch of people. I met up with Coco, aka Colleen Bulchin, who was also an ex-guest and who will be a guest next week. We did a little catch up, chatted to Mojak Lohoko. We recorded a little thing. And then I chatted to Simi RF, and we haven't recorded. I don't know if we're going to record, but we are meeting up again. And he's had a bit of an interesting week, which relates quite a lot to the conversation that we have today. Because, one of the things that comes up with this conversation is, the gigs you don't take being the important ones, and that, sometimes you've got to make hard decisions. Sometimes, if you want change to happen, if you actually care about the things that you say you care about, if you represent certain ideals, then you have to represent those ideals when it's hard, when your principles are tested or when it really matters. And that, as I say, it came up a few times with the conversations I've had, but as I'm sure some of you have seen on the internet, and especially if you follow the Almost Perfect Twitter. I'm back on Twitter. I've given up on giving up on Twitter for now. It's like smoking. I can kind of quit for a bit and then just go full on back into it. But yeah, you would have seen on Twitter that there's this panel happening, but it's not really a panel, but it looks like it's a panel, but it's like this conference thing, this online conference thing that Biz Community is doing with John Savage. It's his thing, like it's him and this other dude. I can't remember the other dude, but like obviously John Savage is the face of the company, and it's Mac G, who has been transphobic, homophobic, all those things. It's Gareth Cliff, who has been a puss his entire fucking life, and recently was openly racist. It's like he's been tacitly racist for a while now, but he just came out with it recently. And then the rest of the panelists are all men. Simi's one of them, John Savage is one of them, and I can't remember the other guy because I know he's involved in media and stuff like that, and whatever. But it's like 3 white dudes, and of those 3 white dudes, one of those dudes is racist. And then it's 2 other dudes, are people of color, and one of those dudes is a transphobe, and a homophobe. So you can say Mac G's repented or whatever, and you can have your opinions and stuff like that, but obviously, in terms of optics, that's a terrible fucking lineup. Like, in 2021, no woman, no queer people, no representation, as they say, and representation really does fucking matter. Like, that's something we've been stressing for so long, and it's I'm sure you guys saw some of what I said, and I think it's whack as fuck to have 5 dudes like in the thing being like, this is what podcasting is about. And like, it's not just podcasting, it's audio media, and it's aimed at like brands and people in business, and stuff like that. So it's not really aimed at us anyway. So I kind of get the lineup, in that regard. Like, you want to chat to people doing big numbers, and Mac G and Gareth. I don't know about Gareth, but like Mac G does numbers. Like I can see that. I can visually see that on YouTube. That even to this day, despite his things, people dig him. So I can understand the bookings, but I can also understand that, yeah, what the fuck? Like, why are you endorsing these people? Why are you fucking doing this in 2021? Like, it's just, we have, at this point, come the fuck on. Like, even 10 years ago, like, this would be whack. So at this point, I don't know. Because, like, to me, off the bat, it was like, it's weird that Tex isn't there. Like, I'm not super into her work, like, just different philosophies, I guess. But I do appreciate what she's done. Like, I can fucking see that she's achieved a hell of a lot. And she's working with big brands and is making actual money with podcasting. So why is she not there? Maybe she wasn't available. I don't know. But there are many other people in podcasting in South Africa. And if you do care about representation, then you will find them. Like, if you're putting together events and you're doing things, then that is part of your responsibility. It's to make sure that people are represented, to make sure that you can show people that there is space for them. Like, but when you do this, you're just saying, like, other people don't fucking matter. Like, I don't know. In my mind, that's at least the way it looks to me. It's just like, it's just the boys' club, And it is. Like, if you look at John Savage and you look at Gareth Cliff and you look at Mac G, they've all been on the radio. They're all friends. Like, they've known each other for years. Like, it's kind of funny seeing people come from radio and then come into podcasting and, like, utilize those connections. And, yeah, they're making money, These people are having a good time when it comes to this thing. And instead of sharing that wealth, instead of, putting other people on, instead of spreading it around a bit, they don't. And anyway, I mentioned all of this because, as I was saying, like, I chatted to Simi about it. We hung out and I watched him have to deal with a lot of it. He chatted to quite a few different people to get perspectives and chat it out, and just, I saw some of what went down. I'm not going to say what we said or anything like that. I mean, maybe we'll talk about it on cast when I see him again this weekend. Maybe we won't. Maybe you can just see what he says online and all of that. But yeah, he announced online tonight that he's withdrawn from it, and personally, I respect the fuck out of that. Like, I know that there's money on the line, there's, connections, there's various other things. And yeah, it's not like he was catching flames for it necessarily, but I know with POC podcasts, like, if you just go look at the lineup there, like, you'll see, like, there's queer podcasters on there, there's black podcasters on there, there's woman, there's everything. It's literally a representative, podcasting company. And I know that's something that Simi's been interested in, but I'm not the Simi defense force. He can defend himself. I'm just saying, personally, after the conversations I've had, after this interview, after a lot of stuff, like, it does matter. Your decisions matter in these cases, It's like, when your principles are tested are the only times they really exist. Like, there are concepts before that. It's just a thing you say until you actually have to do something. So, yeah, that's I guess all I've got to say about that. And I said quite a lot there when I wanted to talk to you about gardening. I've been gardening this week, and it's been quite cool because, my gran, my mom and I, we went to the nursery the other day, and my gran picked up a bunch of flowers, and I've planted them all around the garden so she can look out the window when she wakes up and sees flowers. And It's quite nice. Quite nice. Got some petunias, got some marigolds. What else do we get? I can't even remember the names of the other ones. But yeah, I'm pretty stoked about that. It's been, fun to... Well, fun. It has been fun in its own way, but it's been like somewhat cathartic to be in the garden, just digging holes and planting stuff. And even, just watching it grow over this week. Like some of them were doing really well, some of them not so much, so I might move them. And yeah, it's been a pretty cool experience. And then in terms of other cool experiences, I want to try and rush this because I know the intros get long sometimes. Is Full Gear, which was AEW's latest pay-per-view. I'm writing an article about one of the guys who I really have enjoyed watching his story over the last 2 to 3 years, Hangman Adam Page. I started writing about it on Monday after he won the title, and I'm like 3,000 words deep now. So I don't know when that's coming out. It might be a two-parter, but it's been really cool to kind of have some inspiration again for just writing, because I should have just been writing about wrestling the whole fucking time. I mean, I know there's not much of an audience for it, but I find it like pretty easy. Like it just flows. Like I know the stuff. These are things like it's been quite interesting to just see how much like this little passion of mine like flows through me. When writing about music was always this anxious thing because like I know people are gonna read it and like judge it, and like meanwhile I'm judging the music and the thing, and like it's weird. Fucking being a music like journalist and reviewer is a weird thing to do with your time. Like it's somewhat vital. I don't know. Some people seem to appreciate it, but yeah, I've been enjoying writing about wrestling, and that's, I guess, the stuff I wanted to talk to you about. Oh shit, I forgot to tell you. I meant to tell you like in the first 2 minutes, but whatever. This podcast is brought to you by you. You can go to patreon.com/almostperfect and sign up for as little as $1 a month. It would be pretty appreciated because after what I've said now, I'm never getting invited to one of these biz community things, and I don't fucking want to. But same time, gotta eat. And this podcast is also sponsored. It is sponsored, although it's not like it's not cash sponsorship. We are sponsored by King's House of Herbs on Florida Road, and I get to sample their products, and their products contain THC and CBD and facilitate in the ingestion of those chemicals. So works out quite well for me. And then we're also sponsored by the Print Room, who give me a little kickback. Not a kickback. They give me a discount when I get stuff printed with them. So shout outs to the Print Room and shout outs to Kings, because that's the vibe for me. I want to work with local businesses. I want to work with local businesses, smaller guys, not necessarily the big names, and not necessarily going after, that corporate nonsense. Like, it's just not for me. So patreon.com/almostperfect if you would like to, support this thing. Support my ideals for me, please. But yeah, patreon.com/almostperfect is where you can go to support the podcast, as well as go to the website where there is merch. You can buy a mug, and 10 Rand from each sale from that goes to Sasonke. Sasonke is an organization working to decriminalize sex work right here in South Africa. Check them out, sasonke.org. The mugs are 100 Rand, and you can also get t-shirts, they're 150 Rand. And then lastly, over at patreon.com/almostperfect. I don't know if you heard that yet, but there is a tier. It is the titular titles tier, and it is a $10 tier. And at this tier, you can pick your title. It's weird. Titular titles tier, and you get to pick your title right here on the Almost Perfect podcast. So, shout outs to the team of Riz Ventura, who is our director of purchasing, Julian, who is our king, Karan Slamman, who is the Almost Perfect hedge fund manager, Russell Grant, the Far East correspondent, Karan Chetty, our assistant to the regional manager, Catherine Jenkin, the inevitable ruler of the universe, and Queen Swifty, Neil Green, who is our key grip. And also go check out like the Live from the Winston podcast. This was a thing we used to do back in 2018. I went back and listened to the first episode, and we were talking about Dune back then. Head of the game, baby. Head of the game. Also on the team is Tyron Love, our pantsless weasel. Chief Sales Officer, Subtle Heresies in the Greater Overbig region is, of course, Rousseau. Our executive producer is Stephen Olivier. Our spiritual advisor is Vishendra Naidu. And our anonymous benefactor is our anonymous benefactor. So that's the team. Thank you very much for supporting. I greatly appreciate it. And with that all out the way, and without further ado, here comes the Almost Perfect Podcast with Jumping Backslash. So how are you living, JBS?
Yeah, I'm all right, mate. It's
Just all right.
humid. Well, yeah, it's a dog shit year, but it's humid at the minute in Neisner going into the summertime. But at least I can swim. So we start swimming normally from Halloween, isn't it? And that to us is like, yeah. So normally Halloween, round about that period of time, that's when we are gonna go swimming in the lagoon, and technically that's the start of our summer. And you bathe in the waters of Lake Minnetonka, purify yourself in the waters of Lake Minnetonka, that purple rain thing. Normally it's a good period, and then obviously it just gets fucking ruined in December.
I was gonna say you only have a month of that though.
It's nice at the minute, yeah. It's nice at the minute until the tourists come, and then who knows? I mean, last year everything was closed, so certainly everything closed down on New Year's Eve or before New Year's Eve? I can't remember now.
Can't even remember. I don't even think I did anything for New Year's. I genuinely, like, my memory of these last 2 years is so wonky. Because I've just been inside. Like, every day is bled into each other, so it's like it's hard to really remember what's been going on.
Yeah, oh God, yeah, fucking hell. That's the worst, isn't it? No, it's not the worst. The worst is the worst aspects of what's going on. But like in terms of some of the existential stuff, that kind of like here I am again, in this little at the same time, here I am again. My days, it does my head in. And that's because we haven't even left either. Do you know what I mean? The last time I left Neisner was January 2020.
Shit.
I don't count going to George, for example, like leaving Neisner, to be honest. Not the same fucking thing.
I mean, I get you. You haven't done any extensive traveling. Once I've got the my inoculations and stuff, I have been up in Joburg a bit more just to visit family and stuff like that. But yeah, it's still sketchy. It's still, even with people getting vaccinated, there's we still are in a pandemic, and you're someone who seems to at least understand that. But for the last year and a half, I've seen you losing your fucking head. So you're someone who has been pretty angsty with regards to this pandemic, and especially the way the culture and the people involved in organizing events, DJs and musicians and stuff have actually approached this pandemic, because a lot of people were playing a lot of fucking shows. Some of them were secret, some of them were public, and basically just, not helping when it came to this thing. But now looking forward, how do you see things for yourself personally working out in terms of being able to get live gigs and stuff, especially after challenging so much of the system in place? And then also in general, how do you see the scene growing from here? Or I say the scene, but there isn't exactly a scene. There's many different musical scenes coming together at the moment, I guess, or not even coming together, just doing their own little things. So yeah, what's your future looking like, not necessarily coming out of the pandemic, but into the quieter parts of this pandemic? And then yeah, how do you see things on a bigger scale as well?
Yeah, angsty is a good way to describe. Look, obviously, like everybody else, I was just, you kind of like are going through something you never really experienced at the level you're experiencing it. So it drives you a bit mad. And like everybody, I went a bit mad. But at the same time, I think that, it's hard to explain. It's like, for myself personally, I don't know what I'm going to do, because I don't know if people would want to. I mean, look, I wasn't playing shit tons of gigs before the pandemic. I played as and when. I'm just one of those. I mean, I live in a weird place. I'm not in Joburg. I'm not in Cape Town. so I'm not sort of like out and about. What I do doesn't necessarily fit easily into, what most DJing or a lot of sort of like events are now, which is just kind of like playing on USBs and sort of like boilerplate kind of stuff. So like it's not like I was playing loads before. I certainly don't think my views are gonna help me like get more gigs. But at the same time, see that's the thing, I just wouldn't fucking play those things anyway. I'm done with all that shit. So it's like, I can't mention names, but like the big techno clubs, do you know what I mean? Like the big one in Cape Town and the big one in Joburg, who I kind of did go after at the beginning of the pandemic a bit. I wouldn't play there anyway. Do you know what I mean? And I know, I've played those places, but like certainly
Yeah.
after all this, I'm not going back to that stuff. Do you know what I mean? That's part one. Is like I'm not interested so much in sort of like what bookings people get. I want to know the ones that you refused. Do you know what I mean? That's more interesting to me. So, in terms of like where I see this going, I think that it's obviously this is never probably going to be endemic. This is going to be, chances are, an epidemic. So it's going to go up and down like measles, like chickenpox, like everything else. And it'll probably be like that forever,
Yeah.
I guess, until we just get better and better vaccines or better and better ways of dealing with it. So in terms of what's going to happen to the events industry, it's just going to wax and wane on some level, along with whatever level of lockdown we're at. So, you know, I don't see it necessarily changing. It hasn't fundamentally changed, has it? I mean, all the way through this, I know there were people at level 5 playing not shows, but like gigs, private gigs, either like large scale house parties or places in the middle of nowhere. That's the thing with this country. You can get away with all kinds of shit. Look at what they're getting away with. Do you know what I mean? In like government or whatever. It's like, so I don't know. It's a hard, I'm going to ramble. I don't really want to ramble, but for me personally, next year, I wouldn't mind playing shows. I'm up for playing shows, but I'm going to put, it's something I'm talking about with my partner in the label. Like, we'll just put our own shows on. And then at least then we can control it the way that we want to control it. We can present it the way that we want to present it. And, we can do it in the way that we want to do it if we think fundamentally more than anything else, it's safe enough. I think that if this is an epidemic, then we're all going to have to, I guess, deal with it accordingly. And as long as people are sort of like, on the most part, as vaccinated as possible, and you're double, if you got 2 shots and a booster, well, that's about as much as you can do. Like, I mean, the thing is, okay, I'm gonna try and make this as brief as possible, and I'm gonna try and make this as holistic as possible, just the way that I see shit right now, right? So, like, and obviously, I'm not an expert, and like everybody says, I'm not a doctor, I'm not an epidemiologist, and all that shit, right? But
Fair.
one, like, yeah, we've got an industry, right? Yes, it is an industry. The events industry is a business like any other business. It has money, it goes in, it goes out. Yes, the government didn't help anybody
No.
financially during this whole period. I'm not going to say necessarily whether or not a DJ should get a stimulus check or what I think about that. Although what I think about that is they shouldn't. But let's just put that to one side. And obviously in this country, the unemployment rates are sky fucking high, as opposed to in other countries where, maybe people could find work.
Yeah, that's where I'd argue, like in South Africa, maybe DJs could have done with, a 350 here and there. But elsewhere, it's, I don't know, I'd say it's probably because I think a lot of people in South Africa get into DJing and get into the creative arts because they don't actually have that many other opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, of course. But okay, let's just say though that all those things. I mean, the government isn't going to give you money. At the end of the day, you're in a country like this. No, I mean, no country on this planet, maybe other than New Zealand and maybe America, which provided stimulus checks, have actually been given any money either. So, in terms of where we stand globally, with like, are we going to get stimulus checks? We're about the same as a lot of other countries. The other
Sure.
side of the coin here is massive amounts of public health money has to be found, because like the private sector aren't going to deal with COVID. So I mean, yeah, fair enough. People are like, sticking their hand in the till, but at the same time, that till is very, very finite with everything that you've got to accomplish in an emergency in a country which is pounded economically from the rest of the world. Now, like I said, I'm going a little bit too deep now, but you know, like
Let's chat, bro. Say your stuff, because this is stuff that like I've enjoyed actually. That's why, like, I mean, I know it plagues on you because I'm someone who sometimes I try and speak up on the internet, or I try and like, stand up to what I think is wrong, and it can be something that it plagues on the mind. And you're someone who just continues to like stand up and speak about these sorts of things. So I do
prat
think
on
it's
about it.
important.
No, I mean, I could just read, but all I'm saying is now I'm sort of like my concern is that I just start talking about insane shit. But all I'm saying is that you've got all these. There are all these obvious because it's all connected. So there's these external things that are happening in this country. That the reality is that COVID needs intensive treatment for long periods of time. No fucking private hospital is ever going to give that to anybody. Like, I mean, if I look at where I
Unless you got
live in terms,
gang like you need really good
yeah, but
medical
even
aid, and even then not.
yeah, but even with the good medical aid, they're not going to put you in ICU for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. It's not how it works. You know, all the private cases ended up at our provincial hospital as well as the
Yep.
provincial cases. That's what they've been doing. That's why George Hospital also was on the verge of collapse because, you know, I know, having dealing with my father-in-law who had some health issues during the height of the third wave, and we had to get him to hospital, or at least had to get him some sort of like medical treatment. Our main option was provincial hospital. Obviously, that was exceptionally difficult. I know that the private hospital here only had one bed for COVID. There's no money in COVID for private hospitals. That's why you've got like fucking surgeons, like private surgeons or surgeons in America that fucking are on the breadline because they've had no money for like a year because they can't operate on anybody. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, the point
Wow.
is that you've got this kind, you've got this kind of like, you've got a finite pot of money, and so what is happening in a lot of these situations, I guess, is what the government is doing is it's giving you regulations. So the government is saying, all right, during this period of a lockdown, you can have X amount of people in X amount of space with XXX. Fine, whatever. Not ideal. Nobody wants that, but the government's not going to give you any money. So the government knows the only way that it can let people survive is that if they just let people operate at a certain level. And that's one thing, which is obviously problematic because from an actuarial point of view, obviously somebody's done the maths and they've gone, because there's a cost to all of this.
Yeah.
There's a
Cost benefit
financial
analysis.
cost and there's an actual corporeal cost, which is how many people are going to die during this wave through whatever they do and whatever we do to either mitigate or exacerbate that with our actions economically and politically. So like, I mean, that's the crazy, this I'm sounding like I'm crazy, but like
Not at all.
we've all accepted now that there is a cost to us going on, and we know we are going to lose people along the way, and we've accepted that cost because at the end of it all, those people aren't the workforce. As long as it's not killing the fucking workforce, and it's the over 60s, then it is what it is, right? So we've all accepted it, including the DJ community. So from my point of view, what kind of snapped my brain was a techno club posting music is the answer stuff and saying you've got to save the scene. We need to get DJs here to do streaming. We've got to save the scene. This is at the height when we were talking about, I guess, Black Lives Matter in the US and also how that reflected on electronic music and the roots of electronic music.
Yeah.
And I just thought I was like, you tone deaf. And I went off on one. I went off on one that got me
I
into a
remember.
fair amount of trouble. Yeah, I'm sure everybody fucking does. I went off on one. But like, and now everybody's doing it. So the notion of a playgrave is like we're just, everyone is doing it. It's not now just easy to point your fingers at the business techno, sort of Daily Maverick, Facebook techno community and say, well, look at those that's what they're up to. They're all fucking raving,
Well, that's the
and
thing that
they're
actually,
causing
like,
problems. It's
yeah,
fucking
that's the thing that
everybody.
really got to me was, seeing my friends putting together events, bringing people, together during a pandemic and all of those things. And it's, I had some interesting discussions with people, and a lot of the time it was just a matter of like, bro, I've got to pay rent. Like, I've got nothing else I can fucking do at the moment. I've invested all this money into this career. I need to organize events. I need to put food on the table. And that's where things started to get tricky for me, because it's definitely easier for me to, criticize rich people. But when it's my own friends busy doing things that I kind of disagree with for reasons that are totally fucking understandable, it really made things difficult, especially because a lot of those people had been taking the piss out of other people beforehand. But I don't know, I think a pandemic makes hypocrites of us all.
Yeah, of course it does. But that's the thing, isn't it? Though that all of this exists like precariously. So all of this capitalist fucking exercise and experience is like a rope bridge over like a fucking massive infinite entropy fucking hole in the earth. And so one thing tips it, and this little molecule, this little tiny fucking molecule comes along and exposes everything that we look at totally differently now. When you go, "Oh yeah, this is a massive fucking problem." And so it's like you get up and you do your thing every day. You do you do the same fucking thing. You get up, you go to work. Like I remember when I used to work in London and live in London and work in London. One day out when I realised, holy shit, I do the same thing. I get on the same fucking carriage on the Bakerloo line. I sit in the same seat. I didn't even know I was doing it. So every day you're in like autopilot, and then and then you can't go out no more. And let's say every day you walk past this fucking statue, but you don't look at it. And then one day, when you've had 2 weeks indoors or 3 weeks indoors or a month indoors to stew in your own fucking juices, when you finally are allowed out and you walk past that statue, you go, "Oh, fucking hell, that's a statue of someone that, like, killed loads of people. I don't wanna see that statue anymore." And we're not at that we've not seemed to be able to click that into fucking gear where this is concerned. And so
I, th-
in
well,
a
I think it's just because this is all just so hard and so heavy, like that people don't want to continue just having to fight and having to challenge everything all the time.
Yeah, of course, but then we can look at that all kinds of different ways. You can say, yeah, you got to look after your mental health. You could say you're just becoming assimilated into something,
Yeah.
and at the end of the day, it's too hard for you to think about. What this little molecule did is within the network of art, what we do is exposed all of that stuff. 3 times as many black people or people of color die of this. 3 times as many black people of color end up in fucking hospital, right? It kills. Oh, so that's like we've got racism, we've got ableism with people that are
Ableism,
immunocompromised
ageism.
that can't fucking exactly ageism. So all the things that people talk about when these things become social currency are exacerbated by social events. So I say, well, okay, you can say all this, but you're doing that,
Yeah.
saying you know what I mean? Th- this is what started to drive me fucking crazy, because we're just going to go back to the way things are. And I mean, the problem is that this is a almost like multiple singularities, yeah, where you end up fucking like you're going through the thing, reading about the thing, you're going to read about the thing that's going to happen next, and then you're living the thing that happened next, and it's all happening at the same time. So obviously it's very difficult to pull this apart. But the fact that there's zero accountability in an industry which is constantly calling for accountability, right? There's zero accountability where this is concerned, zero dissemination or examination into what we've been doing in a culture built on solidarity. It's,
Well, projected solidarity. I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe it was built on that originally, but I think what I've seen, at least, like what this conversation's bringing up for me, is that a lot of it's bullshit. A lot of the things people say are identities. You know, a lot of stuff that's happening within our world at the moment is people just projecting something that they think other people want them to project. That's how I see a lot of things. I mean, that's how I view my own actions in a lot of cases, you know? And in that regard, it's easy to say the right thing on the internet. It's easy to say that this is what I believe and this is what is right and these are the people that I stand up for, and you know, like communism, yay. But then, you know, what are your actions? What are you actually doing to bring about the things that you talk about? And that's the thing that always gets to me. And even within myself, you know, I ask myself these questions. And like, it's why I tend these days to talk less on the internet, because I feel like a fraud sometimes. I feel like I'm talking about all the social justice stuff, but meanwhile, I'm hardly doing anything on the ground. You know, I do get involved in certain charities and stuff like that, but like nowhere near fucking enough if, you know, we're really going to bring it about any sort of revolution. So that's, yeah. I wonder if other people are also looking in the mirror and trying to consider, you know, whether or not they're frauds.
Well, we're all frauds,
Fair enough.
but at least, well, we are. I mean, of course. I mean, everybody participates in their own fucking oppression. Do you know what I mean? If we didn't,
What a
if they
statement, but
didn't,
fucking true.
well, but I mean, that's what. Even if you just look at capitalism or class structures, we, it's part of it. Do you know what I mean? It's just that it's kind of been shifted into something else where we might call it internal misogyny or whatever the fuck you might want to call it. We are all in this. We're all in this society, buying into this society. So of course we're frauds. I know that I can think, well, what am I? You know, if I'm just running my mouth off, am I running my mouth off? Do you know what I mean? And I am running my mouth off, but I don't know. I mean, fucking hell.
Why
It-
actually, why do you keep running your mouth off, even though you know it has like all these negative consequences to you personally, to your mental health, to, you know, bookings and stuff like that? Like, why do you keep doing it?
well, because I mean, not to sort of lean too heavily into idpol shit, but I'm white, I'm middle aged, I'm male, I'm straight, I'm an immigrant to a country which is fucked by the country which I come from.
Yep.
So I'm in a position where I can say things, and the consequences of me saying those things aren't really, if I make the decision, for example, I don't care whether or not any fucker books me again, then it don't matter anymore. Doesn't necessarily mean it's 100% true, but it's a position I have to take. And I guess, I mean, I did the same. I ran myself out of the film industry in this country for for this reason,
I
in a
remember
way,
you
because
talking about it last time.
yeah. So it's not like it's without precedent. I mean, the problem is now it just seems so fruitless because it's just an angry guy in his room in Neisner. But this is the thing that kind of blows my mind when I got a lot of pushback, particularly from the Daily Maverick crowd, like the Daily Maverick techno crowd, about
Wait,
my
why do you call
opinion.
them the Daily Maverick techno crowd? Do they share Daily Maverick articles, or what's the deal there?
Yeah, it's a bit like that. This is I mean, I'm. This is the thing. I got to be. I don't want to. But yeah, that's what I mean. It's like centrist techno. Do you know what I mean? It's like this
Okay,
kind
cool.
of. So like from. I mean,
I know there's a lot of
this is
anti-vaxxers
what.
in that scene.
Well, not just anti-vaccine, but like they're not anti-vaxxers. This is the thing. It's like, I mean, anti-vaxxers can be anything in terms of their political leaning, but it's just more of a
Sure.
kind of like, this is where my head started getting to spun, because it's this apolitical, almost anti-political, hedonist sort of view of what dance music is, of what music is, about what all these things are. I'm not saying things have to be heavily politicized. I'm just saying that that's what's underneath it. And to sort of this notion of music is the answer. No, it's fucking not. It drives me insane when people say that, because I just think it's so fucking ignorant.
Well, what's the
But
fucking question? That's what I want to know. If music is the answer, what is the
yeah,
fucking
exactly. Well,
question you're
but the
asking?
question is normally like, oh well, we've just all got to get together again and be with each other again. You're not. It kind of goes back to a point that I probably just rambled off of, but like, I don't look like I say, for me, I know that what I can do from a political position is not
Take those gigs.
interact. Yeah. So I don't have to interact with the side of the industry anymore that I find a problem to me and a problem to what I believe. I can invest that time in what I think is important and in terms of what I think the industry could do or should do. And that's all you can do. And you can be, and you like end up like Jerry Maguire, and you just say, "Who else is with me?" And you hope that people are with you. Now, on the most, and I've been shown flames over the past 3 weeks in terms of who you think might be. Not that I expect it. I'm not saying to people choose, because I think the first stage in all of this is all of us admitting, A, we are all insane, and B, we are all fake, right? On that
Yeah.
level, we're totally fake. We've been driven fucking mad. Maybe we can excuse all the crazy things we did to get ahead, but after the point where you acknowledge it, don't fucking do it again. Do you know what I mean? Don't do it again and try something else, because you don't have to endorse it. The problem with
Yeah.
the problem with electronic music on some level in this country for a lot of people that hit, I'm not talking about say Amapiano or like house
Yeah.
events
Yeah.
necessarily, or like Socky Treffers, but like
You're
the sort
talking
of
more the
morass of like,
like white in
the
inverted commas music, because obviously techno is black, but yeah, like it's the white
well,
clubs
I mean,
essentially.
like there's very few places, not white clubs, but there's just very few places people can play. So it's withheld. Do you know what I mean? It's not like
Okay.
if you want to play like electronic music that's weird, then you've got like one place in Cape Town that you can play, two places in Cape Town you can play. They hold the cards, so you end up in a kind of weird abusive relationship where if they give you something, you will take it, because for them to give you it must mean something, because they've always taken it from you. You know what I mean? So like you've got to that's one thing to deal with. The other side of what I just remembered something I was talking about before that I also kind of, because this is the problem, I'm gonna get rambly. That's the thing. It's like,
It's mellow.
yeah, it's mellow, I guess. But anyway, it won't change unless you try and make some sort of a change. And unless you say,
Yeah.
okay, and the first step is just to, like I say, is to just like walk the fuck away and put that time into something that's worthwhile and that belongs to you, that you think is fair-minded, and approach it that way. And then, yeah, like I said, the problem is people are enter these kind of like abusive sort of relationships where it's like, oh, but I haven't played for 2 years, and now this place wants me to play, and it never wanted me to play. It's yeah. I don't know. Like, why do I say the things I say? Because like I said, I pivoted away from gigs on a certain level way, way before the pandemic, 'cause it just didn't make any sense for me. So that's why I started trying to mix people's music and do production work and sort of like composition for fucking adverts or whatever I could. So I didn't have to like go on the road, because it never used to, it cost me more money to fucking go and play a gig than it does
Uh,
that I'm
the
making.
fucking irony. Like that's the funniest thing about being an artist is touring is one of the greatest parts of doing this thing. Like I love coming to other cities, to perform comedy. And even when I just used to like hang out with my friends who are in bands, it was wonderful. Like, getting to do that whole thing, meeting different people, seeing different places and all of that. But inevitably you would go home like 1,000, 2,000 rand in the deep. And like it's like completely and utterly unsustainable. So yeah, I'm with you there on like I'm actually I ask some of these things because like I'm struggling at the moment when it comes to my future. I don't fucking know what I can do going forward in terms of career in South Africa that will be sustainable and like genuinely be able to make money for me and also sustain me creatively. So because like I've in a similar way like ostracized myself from the comedy industry. I have said things, I have stood up, I have been the only person to say things sometimes and have people come up afterwards and be like, "Oh bro, I really agree with what you said there." And it's just like, "Well, you could have, said something at the fucking time." And so now me looking forward, I'm just trying to think like what is the future when it comes to stand-up comedy in South Africa and what is my future within all of that. So I'm with you, man. It's just standing up for what you believe in does actually have consequences. And I think that's why a lot of other people might rather talk about it than yeah, put their money where their mouths are, I guess. Anyway.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I wouldn't say that. I mean, obviously, I'm not saying I'm cancelled because people would say like, "Oh, you're You'll say I'm canceling people. You go, "Yeah, who are you going to cancel now?" Like that's how people. I don't want, or I'd see on a Discord people go, "Oh, I'll just hope that JBS don't cancel me." It's like, who am I to cancel people? I'm not canceling anybody. I'm fucking cancelled. I cancelled
Exactly.
myself. I took an eraser and I rubbed myself out.
Yeah, it's just
Do you know what
it's
I
a
mean?
dangerous
Nobody has
thing
to
to
do it.
do.
But at the same time, like I said, for me, it's like, okay, well, it's no great shakes if that's the way it goes. At the end of the I mean, I do believe in burning your bridges. I'm not one of these people saying never burn your bridge. No, burn them. Burn them, because then if you burn them, they can't chase after you anymore. You understand? It's like, just burn
Yeah.
them all. I'd rather do that. It's what I did in the film business to a certain extent, and it's certainly what I've done here. Because if I burn it, then I can't ever turn around and go, maybe I will. Maybe I will. Because if I really fucking set fire to it, it's never gonna happen. You're never gonna invite me again. So it's like smoking cigarettes. It's like you can't take one puff because then you're back. You can't do that. You just gotta walk away. But
I get that. So it's
fucking
just no, I get that. So it's
have a
basically
little
just
look.
like this hardline thing of like putting yourself in that position to make sure that you don't get those bookings, that those people don't come calling you, that you never have to be tempted into taking one of those gigs or associating with
That's what I'm
those people
that's what
because
I'm saying.
they're never going to fucking call you.
I think this is sort of like post-rationalizing it to a certain extent. I'm certainly sort of like I'm putting it into a perspective that's probably not true, but or entirely true. But yeah, I mean, look, for me, I was just so shocked as to how people operated and what people were willing to accept. And, like, it's like, and it's fucking everyone virtually. It's not because it's just a ticking clock. In a way, it's just a ticking clock for me. Eventually, I will play a show. Do you know what I mean? Sooner or later, and then I will become part of this thing in a way that maybe that I was fighting against before. I mean, if I was to again post rationalize or to rationalize that kind of bullshit, I would say, well, at least I waited till there was a
Mhm.
vaccine. Do you know what I mean?
I
At
mean,
least
that's
I
me.
waited.
That's the thing. So that's me. Like I'm like, cool, I've waited to get the vaccine, but I'm still not jumping on stages just yet. Like I've organized one gig so far. It was outdoors and people were spaced out. And I'm still trying to figure that out. It's like I do want to do gigs because I do want people who are vaccinated to have the opportunity to, get entertainment. Since so many people were getting their fucking entertainment unvaccinated anyway. So I do want to try and set up gigs where it is proof of vaccination and those sorts of things. But I still don't know if that's correct.
I mean, yeah, I mean, the proof of vaccination thing. I mean, the thing is, this is just it's a ship. You cannot turn it round. You know what I mean? It's like it's heading for whatever the fuck it's heading for, and it's just impossible to turn it round. I mean, all you can do right now, you're just slowly putting your foot on the brakes and you're hoping. But I mean, it's like, a vaccination card or proof of vaccination, yeah, in lots and lots of ways, is about all you can do to ensure that you've got a relatively safe event. But the other side of that coin is all the people you're going to be excluding
Yeah.
from
And
going to
especially
your
for
event.
people for medical reasons who couldn't get vaccinated and stuff. Like one of my
Yeah,
friends had a bad reaction to his first jab and he can't get the second jab at the moment. So there's going to be a period of time where, yeah, there's issues.
So it's different. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't envy anybody doing those things. I, you know, I, I think, yeah, I don't know. It's just with no lessons fucking learned. That's all. It's like there's just no lessons learned. That's the problem. I keep going round and round the same fucking thing. It's just
Well,
whatever. Do you know what I mean?
that's what I said to you. Yeah, that's what I said to you the other day, though. History always repeats itself, just never exactly. Like, it's just cyclical. Everything that happens will happen again, and nobody fucking learns anything. And you just got to learn to go with the flow, or some shit like
Yeah, but
that.
there weren't like fucking, there wasn't techno in the 1916 flu epidemic. Do you know what I mean? A pandemic.
Yeah, but there were speakeasies. Like, yeah, there were speakeasies. People were jawling. People were having secret parties and stuff like that. Like, I did some reading on it, and like, what happened then is happening now. Like, genuinely, the anti-vaxxers, the people saying that masks cause, all these issues and shit like that, they did this 100 years ago. Like, the same fucking things. Like, it's the level of things not being different between the two pandemics is crazy. And yeah, I don't know. At some point I've just learned to accept that there's only so much I can do, and even then, there's not really that much. Like, I'm not a Martin Luther King type, So one man can do a lot. Just some men can do more than others. I do want to chat to you though about music, because you've got a new album coming out, and it's fucking strange, dude. Like, it's a really cool album, but you really go all over the show with it. Like, you start off with some metal and gom, and then like really just take a bunch of different influences. Like, I feel like there's a bit of like Spoko in here, and like gom, and then metal, and then thrash punk, and like it's just so interesting. So, what have you been doing at home? How did you get to this point that you created this album that, I mean, it's the same. Like, I mean, I've listened to your stuff forever, and you do have this way of really just taking a bunch of different influences and creating something completely original out of it. So, yeah, what's been the process for this album?
I appreciate what you said. Thank you very much. I don't know what it's hard to say, because when you look, but I can't really encapsulate it or remember. And in terms of like, I mean, what it probably
It's a
is
dark album.
fundamentally yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it's definitely, look, like a lot of people over the past couple of years, I've been more and more sort of like living under a cloud. Last year, I think a lot of my attitude about the way things have been and why I've been getting so angry sometimes is that, you just lose people. So a friend of
Yeah.
mine passed last June from COVID complications. And then, that was the first one I was like, oh, fuck. Do you know what I mean? And he was like younger than me. You know what I mean? And so a lot younger than me. And then in other ways, like my neighbor, he just like, what, he was here, then he wasn't. And then a woman that I know, that we know, this little old lady that used to work at Fruit and Veg City, and it was all real quick. So like there's
Yeah.
that. And then people sort of like leaving. Pumlani was one. Pumlani was a really hard one to sort of like, yeah, anyway, you know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah. Well, you've got a song that's dedicated. Well, I know you've dedicated this album to both of them, but I know there's a song in particular where you actually even say you're sorry, Pumlani. And
yeah,
what's the why do you name it that?
it's hard to say what things, it just means that, I guess. I mean,
Okay.
I find it sometimes hard to talk about, like, with anybody that does anything. I'm living it. I'm in our house, or our little cottage thing that we live in, and I'm in my studio, and I'm going mad. And I don't know why I do what I do. It just ends up the way that it ends up. Where I think, okay, well, this tune, wouldn't it sound amazing if there's some like sort of jazz metal fusion shredding solo in the middle of it, and then at the end it sort of like turns into a noise track? Well, that would be a cool idea, and I do it, and I go, oh, well, to
Yeah.
me, it's cool. A friend of mine
Was
listened
that
to it
Stupid Game
and said,
Superpowers? Because that was a dope
no,
song. I like
it's
Stupid Game Superpowers, Gratitude Exercises, and then History of Knives in the beginning is also just like such a
that's the
solid
one,
opener.
yeah, the first track.
Okay.
And so that was that one where I was like, oh yeah, so it's stuff that just makes sense, and I can't necessarily describe what it is. And in like a piece of music like that, I just wrote that piece of music in those few days where I'd find out he'd passed.
Okay.
And because I mean, I write music all the time. If I can, I try and write something every day. I mean, I'm not saying I write a
Sheesh,
piece of
really?
music every day. Well, not
Like
a piece of, not a
you
finished
go to the
piece of
studio
music.
and So I
Well, my
tried to do
studio's
this
in
with
my house.
jokes recently, but I've gone off my schedule. But I was doing that just every day. Just it doesn't have to be a good joke. It just has to be something to
Yeah,
work
exactly,
with.
because then it's yes. Not everything will ever be heard by everybody, or,
Yeah,
you won't present everything to everybody, but you can, if you're doing things where you're kind of like doing it and throwing it away almost, or doing it and it just goes in a pile, and then about a month later, you just go back to the moment it becomes like the moment you kind of, for me anyway, the moment I go, I'm thinking about this now, off. And I often don't have time, like I do things like that sometimes because I'm working all the time anyway. So I'm working in my studio on someone's music or writing a piece of music for something or whatever it might be. So I'm here.
yeah.
And in those periods where I need to rest my brain, I will sometimes just write something. So, and in the case of that piece of music, I wrote that in those days, and it just continued as a piece of music that just stuck in my head. And I thought, well, I want to put it on this record. I did speak with Lizo. I did
Yeah,
speak
because
with
it
his
is a bit
brother.
different in terms of the sound as well, though. Like just in terms of it's the song on the album that probably stands out the most in terms of it's not as cohesive, if that makes sense, or at least from my perspective.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Like
uh,
everything else is heavier.
yeah, it's definitely there's a lot of that on there, yeah. And once I made the decision on on that track History of Knives, I made a decision, maybe I think what came first was, what'd be cool would be if I finished it with like if it just turned into a sort of like a metal track almost, and I had live drums and live guitar and live voice,
Yeah,
and I play the chord progression, the harmonic progression, like that. And that's what started there. And then I was like, what would be cool here? I was also listening to a lot of Alan Holdsworth. So like, oh
I don't
yeah,
know.
something by Alan Holdsworth, or even Vernon Reid's another one. I was listening to a lot of Living Colour and going, some sort of
Nice.
like
I could tell.
bizarre,
I could
yeah,
tell off the first track because like we've discussed your love like off of cast and stuff. We've discussed your love of that band and like I know them because of CM Punk and like yeah,
mm.
I heard the riffage coming through on History of Knives and I was like I know where that's from.
It's funny because it's once I didn't know that stuff about CM Punk. I think I first saw it on TikTok, or maybe it was all happening at the same when he came back. Didn't he come back from wrestling? I'm not really a wrestling fan, but I know he
Yeah,
came
he
back
left
like,
WWE for 7 years and then came back to AEW and then I put up a poll saying like what will be his entrance music because he had
yeah,
an AFI song, he had a Killswitch Engage song, and then yeah, he had that song.
he had cult of personality. What did he
Yeah,
come back with?
cult of personality. It's synonymous with him now.
Oh, okay, it has to. Okay, yeah, fair enough. Yeah, that was definitely part of it because I was going through a lot of listening to Vernon Reid and listening to, yeah, I mean, just shit like that. I mean, I listen to a lot of different music anyway, so, and I just thought, that'd be a good idea, and it kind of goes from there. Tracks like tracks like I'm Sorry Pumlani is fundamentally a piece of music that I wrote at the time, and a track which is similar, which is the title track, A Map of the
Yeah.
Hills I Chose to Die On. I've had that piece of music since before I put out Obscure Artist Diets in some
Oh,
form or
really?
another, and I couldn't. Yeah, originally I wanted it was my intention was it to go on that record, but it didn't go on that record, and
Why not?
so I could never. I don't know. I just couldn't figure it out. I just couldn't figure out what to do with it, and then I did figure out what to do with it, and then I thought, okay, I'll put that on here. And then we've got these two kind of like I've also been playing a lot of Nintendo Switch because we brought my we got our kids a Nintendo Switch, so like lots of like fucking games like that, like those kind of like OSTs were sort of like banging around my head.
Nice. Yeah.
So that's part of that, and then maybe something a bit more, I don't know, mood or melancholic, and then the rest of it is me just sort of like, I guess, fucking around with like piano tempos and saying, okay, well, what can you do with this, um, which isn't what everyone else is doing.
That's interesting you say I'm a piano tempos because I thought it was yeah, I thought it was more Bacardi, but like I mean, I'm not as clued up when it comes to
No, no, you're right. No,
electronic
but I
music.
mean, to me, Bacardi is faster, and Bacardi's obviously, I mean, I mean, I'm influenced by that. There's no question.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, and I knew Marvin and that. So, like, it's definitely in there. It's all in there somewhere. And then I don't really think about it a great deal. It's just sort of very reflexive and reactive, and then you just hope. But
Okay.
a friend of mine said, "Oh yeah, you're going senile. I like how you going senile sounds." When he heard that first
That's
track
gratitude
with the
exercises for sure. And yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And then I'd worked with Mandisi and Cormo on that. So he played drums on it's him on drums on History of Knives. It's a this French guitar player called Leo Stallis. That's a whole thing. That's a whole that. It's
Yeah,
not
how'd that
funny,
happen? I
but
saw you
like
were looking online for it.
I was looking. I wanted somebody, and then I went on fucking Fiverr. That's how gig economy fucked up this whole thing is. That I ended up going on Fiverr,
No
and
way.
I did, and then and got two guys, and this one guy had a crack, and it didn't quite work, but I paid him obviously, but it just wasn't right.
Yeah.
And then I spoke to another guy who I was like, are you aware of Alan Holdsworth? He's like, oh yeah, I really like Alan Holdsworth. I'm like, okay, cool. Well, think about that. And he's a guy called Leo Stallis, and he's from France, I think. And he did it, and it was it was a guy on Fiverr. But it's incredible. Do you know what
That's
I mean?
amazing.
And it worked. And I did a bit of editing, and he changed a few things here and there. And then it's Mandisi on the drums, and it's him on the drums on gratitude exercises as well.
Okay.
And that was a song a day. One of those things where I was just right, and I was doing it was a period when I was doing gratitude exercises
Can we talk
and
about
sort of
those?
like
How do you feel about gratitude journaling and exercises and stuff? Because I've faded in and out with this shit, and at this point, I'm just like, I'm just lying to myself.
um
I mean, I'm grateful every day that I'm here and I've got my family and all of that stuff. And, I enjoy getting small joys, but actually sitting down to write it down, I feel is a little contrived.
that I don't do, but
Okay.
I was having I was having a lot of issues with anxiety, and in the end, like a lot of people, I guess, I was prescribed basically Lexapro, and I've never cashed in my prescription. So like I was always trying to find other ways to mitigate certain things. So gratitude exercises in or trying to keep a present mind was just
Sure.
one of those
I'm there.
things where you would say, I'm thankful for this, I'm thankful that I don't write things down
Okay.
and journal. Now, but look, my wife does that kind of thing. And I think whatever gets you the result that you need and you're not harming anybody else, what difference does it make? Do you know what I mean? I
Oh,
mean, as the
100%.
years have
I'm not
gone,
saying that's the thing. I'm not dismissing gratitude journaling for anyone else. I'm saying for me, like I struggled with it. It's actually sitting down and writing it down. Like I just have a weird internal dialogue that it's constantly argumentative. Like I'm fucking anytime like I try and tell myself something positive, obviously there's that voice that's going to argue with me in that. And so sitting down to try and like think of all the things I'm grateful for immediately starts becoming this like exercise in, oh, I'm grateful for this. And it's like, yeah, but also that kind of sucks. And so I've, I don't know, like I just have my own mental issues that mean that some of the things in self help books just don't fucking work for me, you know?
no, they don't work for me either, really. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I was just trying to keep as present mind as possible because I knew, like, if like, I did my driving license in this country, but it took me fucking ages to get my driving. For years, I was driving around without a license like everybody else, and then I got caught. And then once I got caught, I was like, no, I really have to sort this shit out. So I did. But like to get to that stage, I realized why I wasn't. I mean, I don't want to go too far off topic, but like I realized what the problem was. And the problem was that I'd be going with whatever I was doing up to the last fucking minute before I had to go and meet Cyril, the guy that I was doing it with at the training play at the fucking yard or whatever. I'd do that right up to the last minute. I'd be there thinking about the thing that I've got to do after I finish. I wasn't present. And until the one day when I was like, okay, if I recognize this and I can change it and try and be present, I passed the motherfucker. Do you know what I mean? So, like, on some level, trying to it's particularly, like, for me with kids and, like, a marriage and trying also not to be an awful human being or whatever, like, it does help. The point of the song,
Yeah.
I mean, there are lyrics to it. I'm not gonna say what the I won't
I
say what the
can't
lyrics are, but there are
necessarily hear
lyrics
them.
to it.
I'm waiting for the
No, 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 but it is
Bandcamp.
the Bandcamp
Like I'm
release,
waiting
but,
for the
like,
Bandcamp lyrics.
I don't know if I'll even do the Bandcamp, but there are lyrics to it, and it is basically talking about being grateful. But it's just, but I suppose I've just got maybe a similar thing to you, where I'm arguing with myself and almost kind of taking the piss out of it, just to also then deal with that aspect of it. So that, and obviously that song is just like a fucking barrage of like noise, really, and
Yeah, that's the thing. I thought you were being
I guess
sarcastic
that's the
with
point.
the titling of the song.
Yeah, no, it's kind of sarcastic, but there's a I mean, it's I guess there's an aesthetic from the label also where that and Shaheen also has, where
Yeah.
we've kind of dipped into ironic
Ironic
TikTok
depression.
culture and ironic depression, kind of thing, and sort of like using that as sort of fodder. And I mean, I think the next thing I do now, I don't want to do something that's as kind of, not that this is entirely serious, but it is there's a lot in this
It's fucking
record.
serious.
No, well, yeah, there's a lot in it's not it's there's a lot in this record which it is pretty heavy, and it is,
Yeah.
it's not very long. It's only 21 minutes, but it
No.
goes a lot of places. It's a lot to it's also a lot to take in, because it's almost like a sort of like information dump, and it's done like through, now it's going to be this and now it's going to be that, and even in the same piece of music it's going to be three or four different things, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, even some of the
So it's
drumming,
quite
like, changes and stuff are super interesting, and, like, that's the thing, like, yeah, I'm listening back to the album, like, there's so many things, like, I mean, I'm gonna keep listening to it for a while now 'cause there's so many things that each time I listen to it, it's like, "Oh, shit, that's nice. Ooh, that's interesting." So, yeah, I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Thanks for sending it to me because it's basically been the only thing I've been listening to for this last week.
oh, it's the only thing I've been listening to for about a year, yeah. So, yeah, I feel sorry for you, but I guess my point is just, maybe next, for whatever I do next on my own, maybe something a little bit less,
Happier.
you know. Yeah, maybe, yeah, just and funnily enough, actually going, having said, I am never gonna make club music again. I'm not interested in club music, or if I'm interested in anything, I'm interested in intersection of something to listen to and that's kind of maybe got roots in club music. Now I'm like, oh yeah, it would be good just to make stuff which is about nothing and which isn't also this sort of like, that I'm not crying when I'm doing the mix downs. Do you know what I mean? I could do without that. Crying for
Oh,
breakfast. So
man.
we'll see what happens on the next one. But
That
yeah,
sounds like a good
anyway,
fucking title for an album.
crying on the
Crying
mix
for breakfast.
downs.
No, Crying for
Crying for
breakfast.
breakfast. It was all the album was almost called Crying for Breakfast. It was one of the titles, but part of it is like, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to project. It's just there isn't there. Part of the biggest problems I've had over the past couple of years was a kind of recurrence of sort of suicidal thoughts, I guess. And
Sure.
so, and obviously with what's happened over the past year with people that we know, and what life is and what it means, and then fighting with everybody, and that's where the title kind of, I guess, comes from. And in a way sort of going, just don't do the same things I did. Do you know what I mean? Here's how to avoid the holes in the ground. I don't know, but crying for breakfast at one point was a as an idea. But then what I probably did was ended up going with the darker one, the heavier one. That's where I think now maybe I just need to kind of just pull back on that a little bit. Do you know what I mean? Because I always will gravitate towards it, but like, I always do gravitate, I guess, towards sort of slightly dark stuff, or that kind of thing. Sad, bit melancholic, but dramatic. Maybe now just do something which is just beats. Anyway, whatever. Thanks for listening.
So I don't know if you've seen Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, but a part of me just like imagines Ben Affleck saying to you, you know, look at this morose motherfucker. Like, you do have a generally morose disposition, but I relate to that, man. And I also, on the suicidal thing, have dealt with that my entire life. And thanks to meditation, like it has helped a little bit, but that's not like at sometimes it's not enough, you know. And I totally relate. And I think this last year has I think that's the one thing where I mean we've lost some friends to it, and we're going to keep losing friends to it, and it's just a matter of trying to keep our chins up and not delve into that too much. But at the same time, it is there. It's this fucking sword of Damocles that I think if you're someone who deals with suicidal thoughts, it's always going to be there, and it's always going to impact your work, no matter what. You can't get away from that. But sometimes, you know, you can just try and be sunshine and rainbows, and maybe that'll help.
I mean, if anything, I mean, I'm probably like manic. Do you know what I mean? Which is probably not a,
Sure.
because I can either be like an idiot and feel very happy, and like a lot of people, you just sort of like fluctuate, and maybe more so, just with the nature of things, it's hard to ride these waves the way that we're riding them. You know, if it's
Yeah,
now load shedding has started at 2 o'clock, and there's no water, and there's fucking, you know what I mean? It's like, and everything else is going on, and it's just like pile it on.
exactly.
How much can you withstand? Do you know what I mean? At what point do you
Do you break?
break?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that like load shedding is going to make me like walk into the lagoon, obviously, but like,
Not you, but
you
like
know,
it can be something that can be the final step for someone with
no, of
a
course it
small
can be.
business, someone trying to sell chickens. You know, like I mean, obviously there's a million different people who are affected by these things in a million different ways, and it affects all of us, and it's the compounding effects of all of it. That's the biggest problem. It's like it's not just load shedding, and it's not just a pandemic, and it's not just global warming. It's the fact that all of it's happening at the same time that makes it
I mean, I
all
hadn't even
just so
talked about global
overwhelming to deal
warming.
with.
But I mean, obviously, everything what was going on at the same time. It's just that
Exactly.
people didn't know it was.
And now it's compounding.
Well, yes, but is it compounding because it's in reality compounding, or is our is it compounding in
Perception.
our perception because we are just more fucking aware? Very few people read newspapers. Very few people watch the news. When I was a kid, there was newspapers. There was 3 channels. There was a news at 9 o'clock in the morning. There was a news at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. There's a
Yo,
news
but
at fucking
I was
5.
gonna say, have you watched the news lately? Because like watching e-news whilst I'm up here with my family is the most horrific thing I can think of. Like I watch and I just sort of gasped at like what our media is. Like the stories they choose to tell, the way they choose to cover it is just sensationalist nonsense.
Yeah, I suppose I guess the only different, other than the content, and obviously the problem is that when it's the idea of passive versus kind of active, or there's a difference when you're scrolling through and you're scrolling through things until something occurs to you to look at, and then it normally is
Versus
occurring
seeking
to
it
you to
out.
look at rather than seeking it out. To a certain extent, one can seek out the news, but I mean, I understand what you're saying. The news is not, the problem is the news is in
Isn't the
competition
news
with your
anymore.
phone and in competition with you. No, it's probably not the news anymore. I mean, I don't. That's the thing. I don't watch the news. What I do is I scroll through things and I see everything is happening at the same time, and I go a bit mental like everybody else.
Yep.
Whereas before, everything was going on at the same time, but I
But it was
didn't know what
compartmentalized.
was happening. Yes, of course, because it was like, what is going on my street, as opposed to, I know more what's going on in Myanmar than I do what's going on in the complex where I live, and that's a fact, right? Like right
I
now, if
think
someone
that's
was
a
to
fact
ask
we all
me,
know.
yeah. But it's true, isn't it? It's like, I mean, I'm not
Yeah,
saying it's wrong. I'm just saying
it's the way it is.
maybe, it's the way it is. Am I doing that because I can't handle the complex, or is it just a whole of, what the fuck is it? I mean, we have got a complex WhatsApp group now, so I mean that's a lot of fun to be part of other people's insanity. You know what I mean?
Fair enough.
Involuntarily.
WhatsApp groups are like that's the thing. Like WhatsApp groups are the where things are the most lit, I think, in South Africa, which is why I try my best to avoid them. I'm gonna have to love and leave you though, because yeah, I've got families coming back, I've got dogs
Yeah.
barking, I've got to get going. But thank you so much for this
Yeah, we
chat,
got
man. Like
something.
I think we caught quite a lot there. And as I was going to say, like personally, this has been super helpful for me because you are someone I look up to and who I think makes a lot of choices that I admire and would, in some cases, like to make the same ones. And in some cases, maybe not make it so hard for myself. So I don't know. Thanks for,
No,
yeah,
but I mean,
just
it's so you
sharing
can
with
watch
me.
somebody else do it. You can watch somebody you can watch somebody else do it, mate.
Yeah, I don't have
That's the
to
thing, isn't it?
burn my own career to the ground. I can watch you do it.
Nah, just live vicariously through me. It's all good. I'm never leaving Nice now. I'm never gonna get out of this fucking town.
Is that a good
But
thing or a
anyway,
bad thing?
we need to. We need the whole family. We need to get out. We do need to get out. We are going to get out. We're just waiting for the opportunity to get out. But yeah, we are getting the fuck out as soon as we can, just for a bit, just for a little bit,
Yeah.
like a few days. The kids need it, and my wife needs it, and the dog. Well, the dog doesn't really. The dog doesn't care whether it takes a dump in the park here or takes a dump in Plettenberg in an Airbnb. It's all the same with the dog. As long as we're with her, she doesn't mind. So yeah, eventually we will.
Cool.
We'll get the fuck out for a bit, and hopefully
Cool.
see
Well,
you one day.
yeah, that will happen. Like it will. Like maybe in this next year or so. But cool, bro. Thank you once again for your time. And then one more thing, when does the album come out?
The album comes out on the 3rd of December. Yeah,
Cool.
is
Early
it?
Christmas present.
Yeah, 3rd of December. It's the next Bandcamp day. So I'm lumping because I was going to put it out on the 19th, and then I saw, which is Friday, and then there's a few things we decided not to do that. I also saw after I said, yeah, I'm going to definitely do this thing on the 19th. Fucking Adele's like, my album is coming out on the 19th. I'm like, I'm not going to, not that I'm fighting against Adele, but it's like, nah, just let all that shit just blow over. Do you know what I mean? Rather just do Bandcamp day and stick with your people.